It's a thing.
All
right. That's done.
All right.
Makes sense.
Good evening, welcome to this Wednesday, February 15th meeting of the Coventry School Building Committee here at Town School. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:36 p.m. Roll call, Kristen Bagley.
Here.
Kristen Janusis. Here. Ann Dixon. Here. Anna Dos Reyes Putu. Alita Hall. Christine Kennedy. Here. James Pearson.
Here.
Kim Shockley. Here. Amy Angeloni. Here. Mario Perino. Don Cower.
Here.
Stephen Angel, Russ Hill.
Here.
Robert Svetti. Edward Rozika.
Here.
Harold Sands, Krista Myrna. Larry Lima. Don, how do we get out of here?
So there's exits on both sides here. You can literally turn left or right. There's doors at the end of each hallway. The easiest way is just to go back out the way you came in.
Move on to item 3, approval of the minutes for February 1st, 2023. They were included as a link in the email that you were sent from Don. Do I have a motion to approve minutes of February 1st? I'll make a motion. Motion, do I have a second? Second, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Yes, have it. Item number 4, grade configuration. Don, I assume this is you and or Amy.
It's mostly Amy.
Okay.
So I'll kind of let Amy take the lead on this and
I'm gonna pass out to you, there's 3 pages on each, but what I wanted to do is just go over like numbers and just even, this is just a draft, a possibility of how it might fit if it was a lower schools, meaning pre-K to 2 at Washington Open Western, and the new school would be 3 to 5. So I'm just going to.
do you want me to pass them out, Amy?
I got it.
Thank you.
They're included in there. And let's just take this 3 sheets here. So the top sheet. The top sheet is just a summary of numbers over the next, I took this right from the projections that were on in our budget document. I kept pre-K exactly the same, knowing that the way that this is configured on here. Excuse me. The way that it's configured on here, we could go up. It's just, I kept it at 130, which is about where we are right now. The last column there is the highest in whatever the projections were. I think it went out like 10 years or something like that. Whatever the highest number projected for kinder, first or second is there, 307, 316, and 319. Oh, I do like 331. Yeah, it should be 331 there. Okay, that must be a mistake. I'll go back and check that number. And then the totals on the bottom of the total enrollment of pre-K to 2. Washington Oak, this is just a summary page. Washington Oak has a total of 34 possible classrooms. And Western Coventry has a possibility of 24 classrooms, like full classroom spaces. So roughly, if you take the number of kids that are, or students that are in each grade level, and we have a cap of 23 in the primary grades, that's not, I'm not counting pre-K right now, just K1 and 2. If you took the highest number there of 322 divided by the 23, it's roughly 14 classrooms, and 345, which was the upper end of some of the numbers, it would be, which would be like if it was in a the bigger school, 3 to 5, it'll be roughly 25 kids in a classroom. We need about 15 classrooms, so roughly 14 to 15 rooms we need per grade level. Just showing you how to figure that all out. Okay, that's what it is roughly right now. It's 16, sometimes 15 across our entire district per grade level.
So we have 55 rooms total, and we think we might need 45 for kindergarten through second grade.
Right, so on the next pages, I've drawn out the layouts of Washington Oak and Western in a very, obviously, a very simple form, right? So if we look at Washington Oak first, Washington Oak has 3 pods, the blue, green, and red pod. There's 8 classrooms in the actual pod. And the rooms that are down below it, the 2 rectangles or 4 rectangles down below it, are the ones that sit in the hallway that are full classroom spaces. So if you look at, for example, the blue pod at Washington Oak, there's 8 that are in the pod, and then 2 in the hallway. In the green pod, 8 and 2 in the hallway. In the red pod, 8 and 4 in the hallway. Now you might say, why are there 4 in that hallway? It's because they have 2 on one side and 2 on the other. Whereas in all the other pods, there is like bathrooms or smaller rooms, but not full-size classrooms on the opposite side.
We're saying like all the way down the end, right, at the end of each.
At the end of each pod, the big circle area,
Yeah.
there's 8. And the hallway actually has some rooms along the side of it too.
Okay.
Okay, that's how I'm getting 34 rooms total. And then where the tree is at Washington Oak, there's 2 classrooms right next to the tree. It's the 2 classrooms and then the cafeteria. So that's how you come up with 34 classrooms. So on the side, I have just some scribble notes there. What I call extra spaces in that building. Buildings that don't serve as classrooms, but they're being used for like interventionists, OT, special education classrooms, speech and language therapy, psychologists, all kinds of stuff. So roughly there are 2 small spaces in the green pod, 1 small in the red, 1 small in the blue. There's 4 spaces in the library. And there's 1 tiny office space in the office, in the main office. Roughly, they will need 2 special ed rooms and an intervention room, roughly. It could go up or down. And given the fact that they will need to have, they have 3 grade levels here, and more classrooms than they currently have right now. If we were to put K1 and 2 in there. You would need an art room and a music room because you'll need to run art and music simultaneously in order to cover all your itinerants. So with that all said, now if you look in the boxes, I've given 9 classrooms at Washington Oak to kindergarten, 1st and 2nd. So you could go count up the Ks, the 1s and the 2s. I've given 1 special ed room up in the green pod, a music and an art room in the green pod. And then we would need to use the extra spaces for probably an intervention or a special ed room. So that leaves you with 4 pre-K classrooms. All of them already have bathrooms in them. There. Okay. Any questions on that, on Washington Oak?
It's 4 pre-K classrooms enough?
Well, this is gonna be Summit Western too. So now if we go over to, because you can't just have the pre-K classrooms at Washington Oak, because kids will have to, that, or you can, I'm not gonna say you can't. You can, but what will happen is some kids like will have to move from pre-K over to K1-2 and then move again from K1-2 to 3-5.
Yeah.
So it's a
Which
way
they have
to,
to do now, but still like for the first move anyway, but.
yeah, but they don't have to make it, yeah, they don't have to do that right now though from K to 5.
Yeah.
They stay there.
Right.
So I'm trying to limit the number of transitions by mapping it out this way, but we could do whatever we want as a committee, but I just was trying to minimize the transitions. If you look at Western's broken up into 3 areas, what I call the new wing, which by the way was built in the 80s. That's the new wing. So the new wing is the one that's down by the gym at Western. Then there's upstairs, which is the really old section that was built in the 40s. There's 4 classrooms up there. And then the old wing, it was built in the 70s. It's where the library is in the center. And then there's a U and the rooms circle around it. So Western has 21 full-size classrooms in it. Extra spaces that exist at Western is there's a room that is used for the behavior specialist. Psychologist has a little room. The speech and language teacher has a small room. And then in the rear of room 9, there's a little OT space that the OT uses. So those are extra spaces at Western. They don't have obviously very many extra spaces at all. They would need at least, and this is the minimum, a special ed / room for interventionists and an art and music room. They could handle having art and music based on their numbers. They could have art and music in one room. Meaning that sometimes it would be art and sometimes it would be music, and you could also use the library sometimes for like music. Which it's what they're currently doing. I mean, it would be ideal if we could split it up and have an art and music room. But I'm going off of the largest capacity, like 14 classrooms. So if you have 9 of them at Washington Oak, that means we need 5 of every grade at Western. So I planned in there 5 Ks, 5 1s, and 5 2s. Leaving you with 4 rooms for pre-K. Now, you'll notice that I have a B in 2 of them. Those already have bathrooms in them. And then I put a star and a B next to 2 of the pre-K rooms. Those are adjacent rooms to rooms that have a bathroom. So you would have to build a bathroom in those rooms because pre-K has to have a bathroom. So for the people that know Western, if you think about where the kindergarten bathrooms are in both of those big rooms, room 4 and room 9, the adjacent room, they share a wall. It's probably where we talked about doing it in the past, build a bathroom on the other side of that wall. If it was possible.
Anything's possible.
Wouldn't be great, but
How many kids are in a pre-K classroom? What's the teacher?
15 is the highest that they go to.
Even for the state pre-K, that was 20.
I don't know the state pre-K, honestly.
I'd have to check on that as well.
Yeah.
So we're
Being
gonna need to
non-integrated?
immediately fill all these.
Like
rooms.
non-integrated.
No, they're
They're all
integrated,
integrated.
but it's an
The
itinerant
state
model where
pre-K is not.
the special educator pushes in.
So at the pre-Ks that are the half-day pre-Ks that we run now, the teacher is a regular ed and special ed certified and fills both roles. And the classes is like an integrated classroom, peers, 51% peers, 49% students with IEPs. The state pre-K doesn't have the same,
No, they can have a
Ratio.
regular ed teacher with
can,
an
and you can
itinerant
have an itinerant come in and support them.
resource teacher.
And right now, I think we have the 3 state pre-Ks or 2?
Two.
2.
There's a bill being considered right now by House Education in Rhode Island on classroom size at the elementary level. I can't remember what it was. But I would check on that.
It was up last year too.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. It was today. Well, yeah, I don't know if they're raising it or if that's lowering it. I don't know. But
That
that
would be raised, correct. We're at 23.
Okay.
Yeah, our max is 23 right now.
23 K1 2, 25 3 4 5.
Right.
Okay, Norray sits on that. I think he's like a vice
Okay.
chair, so he would.
So just to check, based on our current model, we'd have to house 65 pre-K at a time. Because it's half day.
So no, because correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, some of that 130 are state pre-K kids, they're full day.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's kind of like a hybrid model. You have 2 classrooms that are full day classrooms, then you have 3 classrooms that are half. So it's like 15 in the morning, 15 in the afternoon.
So we have
Split
to add
section.
2 bathrooms to whatever plan we're moving forward with if we do.
Well, it depends on how many rooms. So this gives you, this plan right here gives you 8 pre-K rooms. Right? Right now, if you went with the places where there are already bathrooms, 6 of the classrooms right now have 6 of the rooms out of the 8 have bathrooms in them. But you might say we only want 6 pre-K rooms. Yeah, it depends on what we decide to do.
That's a 130 kids, 15 to a room. Depending on the ratios to stay all day to maybe halfway through is 6 and up. For at least the short term.
I have a question about adding bathrooms. Washington Western is on septic. Have we done any studies in the past about being able to add additional bathrooms that the septic will be able to handle?
Well, I can talk to the plumber, but I haven't looked into any of that, adding bathrooms,
Which we would have to look into anyway, because we're doing the well work.
the well work down there, so they're gonna do a study on that anyways. Don and I met with the, a gentleman the other day, and they're gonna be looking at that, we're gonna be looking at the leach fields over there. Yeah.
So just keep that in mind to float out there, like, hey, do we have the capacity to add bathrooms to it?
The other thing I'll say about Western, just in general, like even if we add pre-K bathrooms or not, there's only one bathroom for staff in that whole school. It's one, that's not double stalls, it's one over by the gym. And so it is an issue there, that they have one bathroom.
Is that because others are broken, or there just wasn't the foresight to build more, or?
So there used to be a bathroom upstairs in the old section in the office where the principal and the clerk, there used to be a very small little like a little closet you would literally go into, and then there was, because remember, that was the only part of the building before.
Yeah.
And then there was a bathroom in room 21, which is the very first room on the end of that building. There was a bathroom in there that kids used. There's actually two, one on each end. I think, the plumbing and the smell in a classroom or in the office, why they probably closed those, because that was all they had.
Okay, so it's not a matter of having to construct, it's fixing the ones we already have, you think?
Oh, I don't think you can use those because they're like literally they're not like bathrooms that you would, they're so tiny and they're so close to like, now that's a faculty room upstairs. Like there isn't anybody that would be comfortable going into that little space and going to the bathroom with the table literally sitting at that.
Oh, I hear you.
And the same thing, you wouldn't want it in the classroom either.
Yeah.
And then, so what happened then is in the 70s. Oh, and they added one down by the cafeteria, down really far downstairs, but it literally is like this, again, right, it's, you have to go through like this very dark.
The dungeon.
hallway, a dungeon to get to this bathroom. It's not like an easy access to this bathroom. And then they added on the side of the school where they built in the 70s, they put bathrooms in the 2 kindergarten rooms that they added. So the staff there currently right now uses the bathrooms in one of the classrooms. They just kind of block it so that it's an intervention room. The staff goes and uses the kindergarten bathrooms, no kids are allowed to use it. Because it's just not enough with one
Yeah.
bathroom way down the other end of the school. So if we were to make that a pre-K room, we're taking away that one bathroom that they have there.
So, how many additional, let's say, adult bathrooms will we need to add in Western?
I think they would probably think, and you can ask Kristen this, but I bet you they would be thrilled with one.
Yeah, and I think if plumbing is a concern, we also have to add bathrooms to these pre-K rooms, so
Yeah,
this is
if you're already adding those, then. you
Yeah,
have to
one-
as well.
we'd be taking one of the options offline because they do use those kindergarten rooms at one end of the building, so we would have to, one would be minimum.
Well, and the other thing to consider, if I understand what your explanation is, Amy, the bathroom that's upstairs in the old section that is not really usable because of that close space. If that space wasn't used for anything else, could you open that space up to a
Make a bathroom.
whole bathroom, right?
Yeah.
That
We
whole
need,
space.
we
The
need a
plumbing
teacher
would be there,
Yeah, we just have to get a fact.
right? But in this new configuration, you might be able to find a
Right.
faculty room.
You might. Let's do a pre-K room, fine.
Now, if we go this route, with the grade reconfiguration, I would think we want to have Phil redo the kind of 20-year plan and, because this pre-K amount of rooms works for now, but I assume we're gonna need more than that if we go statewide pre-K, no?
Yeah, and as time goes by, they may require more universal pre-K. The other thing Phil said, he's listening, even though he couldn't come. And he said that if this is something that we want to continue going down the path of, he'll work up drawings, like really specific drawings with all the spaces and, might give us another sense of how it looks there.
Mine weren't really architecturally.
He can't see them, but you know,
Sounds.
I think you nailed it.
This was really just about a planning phase, right?
It is.
Still,
it is, that's what I'm saying.
still, you could hire me
can't
if you
call Phil out,
wanted
he's
to
in-
once you see this. So,
What, has this, floated around with faculty? What's the sentiment?
So this kind of developed after we had done our original presentation. But Amy and I have spoken to individual people, just a kind of like a fishing expedition, who thinks what. I've only heard positive things from people I've talked to.
Like, what's the kind of stuff you hear? I don't know, so, like,
Well, I think some people like the idea of having the newer school be a 3 to 5 school. And having the opportunity for all the kids in that grade span to come together and have access to a new building. And for the people who were wondering about having, you know, the concern of little kids going into a big building, this kind of addresses that a little bit, because our youngest kids would be going to 2 smaller schools, even though Washington Oak's not small, it'd be
Yeah.
2 smaller schools. But there hasn't been a big push on this yet, because I wanted to
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of think it through before we went too far down the rabbit hole.
Mhm.
But I think it's worth considering, the more we talk about it, the more it makes sense to me. And one of the things that Amy had brought up last meeting that I don't want to lose track of is in terms of curriculum. You know, when all the grade levels in 3, 4, 5 are sitting in all the classrooms in 3, 4, 5 are sitting in the same building. You can do a lot more with PD, a lot more curriculum implementation. There's just, you're not spread across 5
well, and
buildings.
if it gets to go on the property next to the middle school, I've heard people excited about the opportunity to prepare those 5th graders or 4th
Right.
graders to get over to that building.
Right.
and all
Right.
those kind of
And I mean, like,
pathways.
there's so many opportunities. There's athletics, there's concerts, there's so many things that the kids would potentially have access to. But still keep them separate enough that we have an elementary on one part of the campus and we have a middle school on the other part of the campus.
Is that many pre-Ks we have currently? Classrooms?
I think it's
I think it's
5,
there's 5.
2 state and 3.
So we're kind of doing work that would have to be done at some point anyway. By adding 3 pre-Ks now with the correct bathroom requirements and things like that.
So, anything else with this, Amy? Are we
No.
good? So the only other configuration thing I just wanted to throw out there that I think is worth thinking about is Amy and I and Jim Murphy visited Eden Park. Matter of fact, Christine was there. We saw you there. And we got to walk through their new section and talk to the principal quite a bit. And we had been thinking and talking a lot about 1 grade per pod, right? You know, 1st grade section, a 2nd grade section, a 3rd grade section. And one of the things the principal said that she really likes is she likes having 3, 4, 5 in a learning common together. It almost becomes like a school within a school model. Like the students are in a great span and the kids get to know each other, but they also get to know the teachers. And so when they move up within that learning commons, they know, like, this is my 3rd grade teacher, that's my 4th grade teacher, that's my 5th grade teacher. And then there's also that additional like social emotional support of having last year's teacher there and available to you, and it makes the transitioning a little bit different. So I only throw that out there that when we get to the point where we start looking at the middle school, at the new elementary school, maybe instead of thinking about it as, you know, learning commons that are for a single grade, maybe we consider looking at them as being multi-grade.
Okay,
And because that's going to be part of the design if we end up doing it that way.
So when you say that, do you mean that if I'm in class with Ed in the 3rd grade, he and I will be in class together every year for the next 3 years?
Yeah, so there depends on how big the commons is, right? So if you have a learning common that has 2/3, 2/4, 2/5. So that ends up being, let's just say for argument's sake, 150 kids. That 150 kids is in that commons. The way that they design their learning space is it's very flexible. So it's not like a traditional classroom with 4 walls and rows, and you sit in front of like 1 teacher, and it's always like very structured and predictable. There's lots of flexibility, and there's a lot of crossover between grade level teachers. You know, 1 teacher might teach 1 content, they might teach a content together, but you may actually even have access to an upper grade teacher within that learning space. And so it's not as structured as a regular classroom of just all second graders all day in your seat, in your row, in your space. It's a little bit more. When we walk through the rooms there, there's a very, very big space that is sort of like their big meeting area. And within that space, there are other smaller spaces kids can go in. And then there's like six maybe classrooms that circle that space that are learning lab rooms that, you know, if you wanted to think about them in the concept of a traditional classroom, they are, but no one teacher or no one grade owns that room. It's flexible. So one of them might be all set up for STEM. And so all the kids rotate through that room for STEM and science. Another room might be all outfitted with, you know, mathematics. I'm making it up, but you know, it's a little bit more flexible. And what she spoke about, which I think was important to hear, is because there's movement, because there's flexibility, because of all of that, some of our kids will really struggle with being able to focus and sit for a sustained amount of time. Some of their energy is expelled by just being in that space. So they had built sort of a calming room that if kids were heightened or overstimulated, they could go to this calming room and just like sort of chill. She said they don't use it. We went in it. It's beautiful, but they don't use it. The kids who they thought they were building the room for don't have to access it because whatever they need sensory wise, they're getting by just being in that learning environment. So something to
Is
consider.
it beneficial too when 3 grades are combined like that for, say, kids who maybe have a trajectory that's a little above their grade level, or some that maybe they're falling a little behind, like does that help at all?
So we don't track, right? So we don't have like, you know,
Oh, I
high
figured,
classes,
yeah.
but it does lend itself to enrichment opportunities for
Yeah.
kids who want to kind of expand their learning, but also gives you an opportunity to combine kids, not just by grade level, but by skill set in terms of intervention and support. So if you have 3, 4, 5 together and a teacher is pulling a group of kids and they're working on one skill, well, it might be 1 4th grader, 1 5th grader, and 3 3rd graders all working on that together. Could be.
So
So-
does this discussion change the layout of the school? Because I don't feel qualified.
Yeah.
To give to necessarily be the one weighing in on how you guys should be teaching.
Yeah, and I don't think we're at the point where the layout has really been specifically determined. I think there's like this vision of these learning commons and these pods, but I don't think, that's why I'm bringing it up now. Because if we want to have conversation, when we get to this, because now we're at this next part of our journey, right? Stage 2 was submitted today. So now we start doing that really specific planning about what the project's going to be. I think we have to think about those things. And sure, there's going to be people, educators, you know, people who are even Phil, who have a really, really specific skills around what a space should look like. And some people are going to be like, you know, it all sounds good to me. So I think it'll be important to kind of really get some blueprints and some, I remember he at one point had done like almost like a fly through where you would be able to see what the inside of the space would look like. To kind of get a visual of what the layout would be. So it's the beginning of a conversation.
I think it's also important to think about having teachers join this committee to help kind of shape some of that too.
Even just for discussion, like non-voting.
Yeah.
People who just come in.
Right.
You know, because I can just speak as a parent, I would say, you know, part of what I like about this school is that the kids will integrate more with lots of different kids, so that when they go into middle school, they're not suddenly bombarded with 1,000 people.
Agreed.
Where, and if, you know, you're not part of something, you know, you're not involved in community activities, you're meeting a lot of kids anyway.
Mhm.
So I like that kind of crossover. Also, you know, there've been definite years where I'm really happy one of my kids isn't with in a class with a kid they were in the year before. You don't necessarily want kids to have to constantly stay with that same
Mhm.
group, so I like that you said is still some crossover.
Mhm.
Because you don't want to have a bad experience in 3rd grade that just keeps going throughout the rest.
Yeah,
of
and I would say in having that school within a school mindset also does give you options if you need to move somebody from one learning common to another. So if a student is in a particular space and it's just not working out, doesn't mean they're locked in for life. They can get a fresh start going to another space. It's still going to be a 3, 4, 5, just be a different group of kids. And so that presents an opportunity.
But I don't want Ed in my class.
Yeah. He bothers you, takes your lunch.
Coming back. No, I mean, like I said, all my perspective is just
Yeah.
having had
Yep.
kids in school and what I think it's good that our town is so large because I know that Narragansett with this, it's so homogeneous there that you never be, you know, there's one elementary, one middle, one high, maybe they have more than that, but still, you're always the same people. I think with us, because of the size of the town, it works out a little better
Mhm.
when you have this sort of everyone moving together situation.
Phil's texting me. He also said in stage 2, he set money aside, like it's included in the budget for bathrooms at Western. So that's something that's built into the plan.
It's magic.
So what do we need to do next from here now?
So I think if everybody's sort of like still thinking this is probably a good idea, we can get together with Phil and really do like a more specific layout. And try to nail it down a little bit more, but philosophically, if everybody agrees, the only other thing we could do is a little bit of research and legwork and just, somebody brought it up at the last meeting, look at the other communities that are doing this, see how it works for them, ask them questions, find out if there are lessons learned that we should take from that.
I think we do need to bring in faculty from each of the 3 schools. And start to get them involved and make this feel like it's their project too.
But yeah, it's
Well,
almost
the
like,
5 schools
yeah,
now.
bring them all in.
And I think we should consider picking one of our meeting nights, maybe or maybe whenever it was convenient to go down to say the Newport School
Mhm.
or whatever, any of the new.
Yeah.
Or the Eden Park.
Mhm.
I think us doing a little field trip would be
Yeah.
appropriate.
That, and something you just said is also important, right? So now it's not just a 3-school thing, it's a 5-school thing, so everybody's involved in it now. And I think that changes the dynamic a little bit, so instead of 3 schools being sort of like the target of this, like you're being closed and you're being moved, it's like a whole reconfiguration, so everybody's invited to the party, everybody's involved in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or form.
So I don't know, we ask, principals to solicit volunteers who might
Mm.
want to from each of the schools, but I'd like to get them involved sooner rather than.
So I think if we get Phil to work with us to get a little bit more detail, I know he's worked in some of these districts that have done this. And then maybe we do a little bit of homework and then we can kind of put together some sort of presentation or some literature around it, and then bring in the teachers, share with them our thinking and solicit some feedback.
And I think this changes our message too for selling the project. It's like, we're revolutionizing our educational environment for Coventry.
For the whole town.
Yep.
Yep.
Alright. Any other discussion on grade reconfiguration? Right. Moving on to item 5, facilities equity initiative project.
I just wanted to show you some things. I get 2 seconds here. I don't know if you all can see that. I can make that a little bit bigger.
I'm the youngest one here and I can't see that.
I can see it.
I think you just use that as an excuse to say you're the youngest one here.
Thank you.
Discrimination, yes.
So we've been talking about this high school initiative, this equity initiative thing forever, but we had never really been like officially notified that we got it. So we've been officially notified that we got it. So the project is $5,368,197. But I wanted you to see the next 2 lines. So it talks about what the school building authority commitment is. So their commitment is $2,639,763. That means the difference is what gets baked into the bond, because that's what our local contribution is. If we are able to partner with MBE contractors to do the work, there's an additional 15%, which means they would contribute $3,176, and we would, $3 million, right? We would pay the difference, which is a lot less. I know. 3,176,582.
Is it just
Yeah.
MBE or does WBE factor in?
I think it's both. But I will say, this is what they wrote, so I'll have to go back and check that, but I thought when we first talked about it, because it says here, if I scroll down a little bit. Equitable businesses practices, districts for which minority business MBEs comprise of 15% of the project. So we can double check about the WBE and just to see where that lands, because I thought initially they had said both.
So. Bear with me, hold my hand.
Yep.
So does the town technically have to front all of it first to get?
So
reimbursed?
if I recall correctly, because Phil and I actually called Mario
Yeah, I called it.
and asked him the question, and I am almost positive, I'll have to go back and check my notes, that he said we only have to worry about our share.
What is our share?
So our share without the minority-based businesses or women-based, depending on what it says, is the difference between, we can do the math real quick, the 368 minus. Is anybody beating me to it? 368 197 minus 2639 763. 2,728,434.
2.7.
But if,
So
Okay,
if we can't do the bond, and it seems according to our bond council, the bond can't get done until after the summer, can you start this project? Like, do you have funds
no,
that we could reimburse?
no, what I think the town would have to consider, and this is a town council. Town manager thing, is would we or could we, if we wanted to, use the federal dollars that you have available to do this project? And then somehow work in like a reimbursement after. we get
yeah,
that.
we'll have to figure out how those get reimbursed, because I don't know that we can get reimbursed back on our.
Yeah.
funds.
See, I'm no expert in that part of it, so, but I know the school department doesn't have $2.7 million to put up front. But we'll have to
We
check with
would get the
Mario.
money back
Yes,
on the back end if the
The
bonds
bond
pass,
passes.
but
Mhm.
at the same time. If we don't do it, it's the equivalent of losing 5.3.
100%, just need to have, to be able to find the actual money.
Yeah.
So do you trust the bond enough that you're like, let's go to?
But at the same time, it's not like this work. Should get, is a nice to have anyway,
I am.
it's all
100%.
accreditation, am I wrong?
Mhm.
Are we also, at this point, the projects you put forth, we're locked in on those?
So I'm gonna show you
right?
what those are. Just this is the second part of this is, nope, wrong one.
While you're looking, just based on the company I keep, that gym floor in the middle school has been referenced a lot.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that otherwise, it's probably a better gym than most middle schools have. It's
We-
really big, it's got space for
Yep.
people to watch the games. We're going to schools to play games right now that are like shoebox size game. But that has been,
That floor was bad 15 years ago.
So it is on our capital list. That floor is on a capital list, but the high school floor is actually worse.
Yes.
yeah, and my question was actually the fitness center, but that's not much money. It looks.
No, so it's mostly aesthetics, there's two rooms. One room is the weight room and cardio room that has the weights and the machines, and then the other one's more of a yoga room, but that also has some machines in it. They both just need to be kind of spruced up, it's not really buying all new equipment. It's new paint, it's some lighting, it might be some mirrors, on the walls. There's just some things to make it a little bit more attractive. But we do have the gym floor on our capital list that, at some point, the middle school gym floor, we'd have to look at that. So this is the way it breaks down. You guys can all see that. I know my big head's in the way. 1.4 for the gym renovation. Science labs are 897, auditorium is 692, and then the fitness center at 92.
Okay. So and it may just not be my recollection, why is that only $3 million worth of projects, or is that just what we?
That's,
Oh, wait, the sprinklers.
no, sprinklers is a separate project. That's not on this. That's a good question.
I'd say throw a gym floor on it.
Yeah, right. I'll have to go back, because I'm not sure why that number is different.
Because I
And
feel like these are the 4 projects you've been mentioning the whole time.
Yep.
$176.
that's the number with the 15%.
So maybe,
That
That
three,
is
176 is the same number from the other page.
yeah,
That's how
probably
they,
how they are.
so they're
applying.
saying this is what we're applying to each part of your project, and you're applying the rest.
Mhm.
Okay.
so I just wanted to share that with you folks. There's really nothing else other than I wanted you to know that, but when we get to the next part of the agenda, when we start talking about timeline and stuff,
Yeah.
you know, one of the things that sits on me heavily is if we don't do a May referendum, and it ends up being a fall referendum, I'm just concerned about, and it sounds like that might be our only choice based on what bond council is saying. I just have to really think long and hard how we're gonna make these projects happen, because they're so they're large, you know, ripping out a gym floor, the gym floor is huge. Pulling out bleachers is huge. That's usually a summer job, so
And having the project get done, people can see. really
was
fast.
something I was really hoping to try to get done.
And with something like this, it's not like complete construction, like, what are the, like. The town council would consider a 2.7, say. What are the chances of overages with these types of projects versus, like, we don't wanna have to, you guys come back repeatedly saying. "We need more money."
So one thing that we started doing, Russ has begun to like sort of engage with having some people come out and look at the job. So we can get some really hard numbers in terms of what the installation would
We
cost.
did some quote, got some quotes for the gymnasium quote, we also gotta add in. You know, we were thinking about painting in the ceilings, and doing that before we rip up that floor, you don't wanna bring a machine in on a brand new floor. Do all the painting, do all the walls, the ceilings, the HVAC up there, it's time. Yeah, it's time.
Don't smile at me like that.
Most of your overages will come from the unknown, and there's not a lot of unknowns that come from those
That's what I'm
smaller
saying.
projects, because you know, like, you're ripping out a floor, there's not a lot, you're not gonna really uncover anything underneath that you're like, oh no, this is gonna drive up the cost. It's
Okay,
So once we get, I think, like quotes,
I'd rather not,
Well,
you
no.
guys not have to come back to
Yeah.
us, like, if we need to say an amount not to exceed,
Yep.
then.
and maybe, who knows, maybe when the quotes start coming in, we have a little bit of wiggle space and it's not as tight. You know what I mean? Like if they come in a little bit lower.
Okay.
I'm like Phil's assistant here.
Yeah.
3 bids in Vashon County.
He said they're low, just like Christine said, he said they're low risk in terms of overruns. If they're careful and they stay on top of it,
Mhm.
so. Any-
Be very proud.
And we have to make sure that however we give them this money, it's not considered money.
Oh, yeah,
It can't be, right, you don't want that to be worked into like maintenance of
don't
effort.
turn around and say, where's
Yeah.
this 2.7?
Yeah.
Okay, any questions on the facilities equity projects? Item 6, referendum dates.
So when I first put this on there as an agenda item, we were still kind of coming off the heels of the last meeting where we were trying to figure out where we're gonna sit, but so maybe,
It's been decided.
and maybe we probably update everybody on how that came to be, so.
Yeah, and I don't know, I don't know if you talked to Pat and Sally, but, you can speak to this at all, if you want me to, or Bob.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is, yeah, I mean, they're not, you're looking at that May date is just, it's not a doable date. It's just not possible.
I think by the time their biggest thing, by the time the legislation gets drafted, gets to the legislators, they make their vote. It just won't be done.
Yeah.
Figure they have the time to do everything.
I think because of the lead times. for the most part.
Yes,
It's just not a doable situation, and the fall is the only time that we really We'll have enough time to do it. They're not gonna get done.
That's not the boat that hinged the Pago, right?
So,
No.
I called, Mario about this and I said, what are our consequences if we move to a fall vote? He said, if you submit your stage 2 on February 15th, which we did today, we lock everything in.
Okay, good.
Locked in all our pay
16 million.
Yep, we've locked in all of our reimbursements, everything's locked in. The only contingency is we have to have a referendum within, what, 6 months, I was getting there.
So,
Now,
Mansplaining. We have to have our referendum within 6 months of the ride of the state approval in May.
Oh, okay.
So
So not
6
6
months from a
months
date.
from
in
now. Okay.
May. Yep. So we've locked everything in by today.
And I will say, your odds are better with the council that we're not trying to get this all taken care of, or we know what our bottom line is. So I think as far as getting a yes vote from the town council, this is improving your odds. Yeah.
to go up to bond, we have to have up-to-date financial.
Yeah.
And we don't have
You
up-to-date
don't want the bond
financials.
to cost us.
So until that's done, until the audit's done for last year. We,
So when does the town council have to vote on sending it to a bond
So,
referendum?
it has to be, I believe they were saying it should be like 90 days out. That the state DOE it starts their process. So think 3 months from when we would have the referendum.
What are you leaning towards? Is it November, October, September? What are you leaning towards?
I don't know, we haven't had that discussion.
They put out September at the meeting, I think, just as far as when the council, when the bond council said the earliest. when those-
Yes, that's what bond council said would be best.
Well, I
case.
will say that we do all our open houses in September. So that's an opportunity to promote a project,
Yeah.
so.
Just it has to be that first Tuesday after the first Monday thing.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to plan for,
Which
so,
might leave out to the-
yeah.
So promote in September. vote in October.
Mhm. So. Yeah, that's how it would have to go, so, but yeah, good news is we have no consequences. In terms of losing funds, we locked it in, by submitting today. So now we just have that window where we have 6 months after it's approved by the board in May.
But we should make that project part of budget funds.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, just that, the small ones that Don just put up.
yep,
still, we still have to have shovels in the ground by a certain date, though, right?
December, right?
yeah, so, Bill actually showed. I had a meeting with him 2 weeks ago and he showed, maybe we can bring it to our next meeting. The schedule and how it would lay out. The one issue we run into by doing it in the fall. Is now our schools aren't finishing until 27, whereas before they were finishing in 26. Because winter obviously affects our ability to start.
So when you say shovels in the ground, it's a bigger project, right? There have to be shovels in the ground as the main part of the project, because technically, if we're able to financially. We're gonna do part of the project that we're bonding for summer.
You would, I mean, anybody can correct me on this. My understanding is if you took an alternate route to funding that project, it wouldn't even be part of the bond. My thought was you would still have it part of the bond because we'd be like paying back, but I don't know if we can pay back.
So
So
I wonder that too. We
I
need
think
to
the council's
confirm.
gonna want that money back.
I think so too, but I just don't know.
That's a big-
It's not a like, would they? It's like the mechanism to make that happen. I don't know
Yeah.
how that works.
Yeah, Mario explained it to me about how it would be possible.
But I guess the point is, if we have the funding available to us, we would be able to start, I would think.
Basically, we're starting something that is part of that bond before we get the bond. As far as shovels in the ground go, doing those gym, but I don't know if that's.
We gotta figure that out. But somebody smarter than me has to figure that one out.
Bond in October. I mean, shovels in the ground, it's broad, right? I mean, you could put a.
Put a
construction
fence
fence
up.
up and
Yeah.
drop a piece of equipment
Yeah.
on the site and it's gonna check a box.
And in the winter, we could probably start clearing land,
Yeah,
at least.
has anyone looked into if that site next to that area next to the middle school is a bird sanctuary? Somebody brought that up.
yeah, I have not, but we
Something
could,
about being a nature sanctuary.
I have not. So maybe Russ, can you talk to planning maybe, or
Done that.
you've done that?
He said he can't find anything on it, but that's from them.
So who else would we
Yeah,
go?
who else would have that information?
Yeah.
Should we make sure we have a viable backup to the backup? I'm sorry, but we should probably have to, I mean.
Has anybody noticed any signs over there, or anything, like as far as go over there?
Oh, the Stop and Shop.
No, the
The-
bird sanctuary.
The space next
Oh,
to.
oh.
I've actually looked on the Audubon Society and all of that as well, and I can't find anything that says there's anything there that's
What are
bird related.
The land trust might have some
Yeah.
information, because they have investigated parcels of land throughout the entire community, so you might just check with them. Check
doing
with
it
some
for-
of that.
So Phil says that, two things, shovels in the ground does not mean actual shovels in the ground, just want to have a construction manager on board by the end of the year, and that they did some checking and they did not find a bird sanctuary in any deeds or anything.
Okay, just wanted to do that due diligence. Well, let's at least keep that 2.7 top of mind as we go into budget discussions. I'm meeting with Bob on Friday to talk about capital, so. let's move it there.
Well, because if we have a capital fund that we can reimburse, I don't think we can get our capital fund up to $2.7 million this year. But, we take money from the capital fund and let state funds reimburse it. I wonder
Do you need all 2.7 in this fiscal year?
if we do it in the summer.
Yeah.
It's called rec-
Starting July 1st, right?
Yeah.
Just to be the stick in the mud, there's something else you gotta remember too, is you've also got those band costs. That are gonna be part of this as well, and that's gonna be substantial. Additional funding that's gonna be needed, that's not coming before we get any kind of state reimbursement. So, I hate to be the bearer.
Well, we're getting $16 million up front, right?
That's not part of,
Doesn't make it go away.
yeah, we're looking at the first year alone, the estimate is almost 500,000. Then I believe 1 million and change, and then 2 million and change on the third year before the bonds actually get kicked in. So that money's gonna have to come out of town funds to pay those. That's part of what we've got a discussion going on tomorrow in reference to this, but that, all that money is also has to be earmarked and budgeted for.
Mhm.
So
Certainly.
just throwing that out there.
Okay. Any other, so, we should probably start talking to Lori Anderson at the canvasser's office about the scenarios of
Mhm.
the timelines of the BOE for, October, September, November, and what those look
Mhm.
like, and when council and school committee.
When you need to vote by.
Yep.
Right. So 7 is the project schedule. I don't know if we wanted to maybe table that until the next time Phil's here. I
Yeah.
know you had seen something.
Yeah, I'd rather wait on that, and then he can show what it, he had the Excel doc that showed the dates and how everything's spread out, so, yeah, we'll wait on that. And then if I get the dates ahead of time for the referendum and how it can fall out, I'll send it to him ahead of time, so you can look into that. Okay. Finance updates, we kind of already talked about that, sounds like there's a meeting happening tomorrow with, is bond council not or? Is bond council in that meeting or no?
No, it's just the three of us,
Okay,
and then from that point, it'll get passed on for our activities on tomorrow.
okay.
Is there any thinking that the rates would potentially be lower than the interest rates? I know you can't predict it, but I don't know how they,
I think we'll see the bid today, show 4 or 5%.
Yeah.
Couple instances, so there's some belief that they're gonna drop 5%.
I think that's Carol's too.
what's that?
Carol used like 4.5.
Yeah, one of the times he built it out was like with 4.5 and another time was like in 5 or
We
5.5.
went up to 5.5 on one,
Mhm.
yeah.
The other thing that may affect us when we go to market with these is, say we find that we have to restate our FY 21 audit, that's not gonna look good to when we go to sell, and that could change the rate as well. This is not something that they want to see.
Mhm.
And that'll have to then be just a policy decision by the council at that time.
Is there a good chance of that? Do you know? No. Then the other thing that's been floated around that we could probably revisit at some point is, if everything goes forward as planned and we do get the bond, if there's any opportunity to sell that bond, because I guess other communities have done that and made some money off it. I think he said Johnston sold their bond. Is that what they call it? For it got $8 million. I think maybe I'm using the wrong terminology.
Premium.
The premium, that's what it is.
Depends
The
on the
premium.
issues.
Yeah.
It depends.
Yeah.
How, of course, that's all.
Yeah.
But they have been, like, North Providence, I think, about 18.
Yeah. Mario's talked about that a few times. You know, we know that's not,
Or do their addition, their bond.
yeah. So there might be an opportunity for that too, and that may cover some of those band costs, maybe. I don't know.
More so after the fact. 'cause
It would be.
Your band costs are incurred before you buy it,
You're right,
so your band payment's gonna be before you.
Yeah,
buy it.
right.
So, you wouldn't know that, you know, bond issuance is gonna be, so,
Yeah.
2026 maybe.
yeah.
He's looking at potential of 3 years before we check
Yeah,
that.
I think there were three 1-year bands that were in there before you buy. it.
Yeah. Like I said, the last year maxes out at 2 million change. On that payment.
Is there anything falling off?
I
There's
don't
there's
know.
a small amount.
There's a small amount.
Small amount
I
coming
think
off.
25,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nothing big. We had the big drop off last year,
Yeah.
$1 million. But there's nothing big coming up.
all right, any other questions, discussion on finance? Capital marketing campaign.
So I met with a parent today, actually, from this school, from Tyoke, and just sort of had a conversation with her about forming a parent advisory committee, some sort of PAC with parents from a variety of schools. I already have one from Washington Oaks that she would help out with the finance. So she had a lot of questions, a lot of good questions. And I actually think with us having to do this in the fall, it might help that a little bit because it won't feel so rushed and so panicked. And her questions weren't questions like she's against the project or against what we're thinking about, just the kinds of questions that she knows other people would ask of her. So she wanted to be able to answer those questions. So we'd have to work on an FAQ, but I think one of the things we probably should do at some point, I don't know when, and we did this when we did the last project is we met with some people about marketing, you know, and got an idea of what things would cost. Because if this group comes together the way we think they're going to come together and they register as a PAC and they do all the things they're supposed to do, the next step is what's the process in terms of getting donations, depositing donations, and then dispersing those donations to pay for marketing? And what is that marketing cost even going to be? And what does that include? So I think at some point we should bring somebody in to begin having that conversation.
Yeah, what's the goal? Like,
Mhm.
to start raising money without a goal.
Right. Right. So we can work on that. We have a little bit of time now, so we can work on
Yeah.
that. But we definitely have to form a rest of the committee to get people that are passionate about it.
What do you need from this group to help with that effort?
So I think, well, I don't have, maybe you folks know, I don't know where you want to go in terms of who we want to bring in to begin having conversations with. You know, there's been other, you know, we had an agency present last year. Is that right? 2 years ago?
Yep.
And then we had some sidebar conversations with some other people who might
Yeah.
be interested.
I have a name too that already gave me an
Yeah.
estimate, but that doesn't include the ad
Right.
buys.
So I guess what I'm thinking is maybe if everybody agrees, we maybe come together, if anybody has, I mean, you guys have connections out there that maybe I'm not aware of, and maybe we come up with some names of some people that we can begin to
Can we
engage.
pull together a flyer that would describe what the commitment would be, because I think that helps people decide.
Mhm.
whether or not they want to join. Like,
Yep.
if we could, you know, so that way, you know, you can hand it to somebody that this is what it's all about, or email it, or whatever it
Yep.
is. It can get floated in you know, some of these PTO groups on Facebook, I don't know. But I think if we could help define what the commitment is of a parent that does this, that helps.
We can work on that. So that's, it. I just wanted to update people that I've, you know, one of the asks was to start reaching out, communicating with people that might be potentially interested in being part of that, so that process has started. It's gonna take a little bit of time to nail people down, but that process started.
Okay. Any questions, comments on the campaign? Public comments?
Harry's saying, no.
In terms of the next meeting, do we want to keep our foot on the pedal and keep with the twice a month? Or do we want to do it once? Just have a hefty, just have a hefty once meet, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there.
I think until there is a firm commitment concerning the marketing campaign, that we should meet every 2 weeks just to keep on top of it. Marketing is extremely important. It sounds like there's been some initial conversations, but I don't see a structure yet. I don't see membership yet. I don't see goals. We don't even know how much money we want this group to raise, et cetera. So I think until we have a handle on that, I think it's better that we would meet on every 2 weeks or twice a month. And then we could level off as it gets closer to summertime perhaps.
Maybe we can just get some people to come in and talk to us about what they've done and how much it costs and.
So
It's important.
do we shift the focus then of this to more, the stage 3, like design elements and marketing, because we need to know what we're marketing. So we're gonna raise all this money and then that.
And I'm sure Phil can help with that. So maybe that's the next piece.
Yeah.
You know, what's the stage 3 planning look like and what are we marketing? And then maybe we can communicate to some vendors, some people who do this work and have them come in and present to us. Here's what we would do. This is what it would cost. I think one of the things that we tried to do last time that was not particularly successful, and I was involved in it, is it can't be like sitting on like 1 or 2 people to
No.
try to do it. There has to be a professional. There has to be somebody who's like,
Yes,
that's their job.
it's worth the money.
Yeah.
Well worth it. What? I'm just saying.
You're right, 100%.
I don't know, I like Amy's drawing.
Yeah.
If she,
Yeah.
just with
That's great.
extra in that.
Yeah, that'll be the campaign.
We'll just put out a Stop and Shop, handing these out. There you go.
Do you like something like this? Yeah. All right. Okay, so our next meeting, I'm a hot mess and my phone's at my house, so if someone can tell me what it is.
Okay.
The March 1st.
Whatever 2 weeks is from today.
Yep, March 1st.
See, that's how quickly it's going, so. I think the-
January is always a million years, and then February goes by about 80 months. Do we go back to administration?
I think so. I think so.
And that field trip should be planned too, if we're doing this every 2 weeks, let's plan.
Yeah, I personally don't want to go back to Eden Park, unless we have to. I ask a lot of them and they've been very accommodating to me. I just don't want to be like, you know,
Well, if you can suggest another space.
I wonder, I mean, I know
Johnston?
Newport is over the bridge, but, you know, Newport has done this work. But maybe between Christine and Alita or Phil, like if people know of projects that are similar in scope, maybe we can go visit someplace. I just can't keep going to Eden Park. It's just not fair.
Okay.
Unless Christine's giving out pizza, then I'll. Eden Park.
You come on the right day, you
Right,
never know.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so March 1st, 6:30 at Central Office. All right, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. At 7:40 PM, I have a motion. Do I have a second? All those in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are.